let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-6075. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us online by going to our website or to tctvonline.com. Click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing star 6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with your cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to the public comments email on our website. Public comments received by noon on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by noon on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone registered online for public comment? All right, thank you. Well, we will get this meeting started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Olson, will you lead us, please?
Yes, I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. We have 4 non-agenda items today that will be taken after item 7 and after item 29. So we'll jump into the agenda right now with item 5, which is consideration of an order in the matter of amending the retirement plan for certain employees of Tillamook County. And with us, we have Jeffrey Kirschner from Kirschner Hunter LLP to talk us through this. Good morning.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can, thank you.
So the amendment is fairly lengthy, but it is really doing just a few things. The first thing it's doing is freezing the retirement plan to new or reemployed employees on or after January 1, 2025. So from that date on, employees will be going into PERS. So this plan has to be frozen to prevent them from getting a double benefit. So many of the provisions in the Second Amendment are intended to implement that freeze. The second thing that it does is to grant deputy district attorneys police status as of January 1, 2024, following a House bill that went into effect for deputy district attorneys under PERS. So basically, the plan is going to copy or have the same provision for DDAs as PERS does. And then the third thing that it does is to make explicit under the plan certain historical administrative interpretations. These mostly have to do with leave, because of Paid Leave Oregon, which was not historically granted under the plan because it's a new provision. The plan had to be amended for Paid Leave Oregon, and then it was thought by Jody Wilson that it made sense to bring all those other leave interpretations that historically had been administered by the plan but not embedded in the plan document, just to get the plan document to include all of those provisions. So those are the 3 things that the amendment does. It does them in a, I guess, somewhat complicated way because the plan is complicated, but I don't want to get into the complications unless you want me to or you have other questions.
Thank you. Commissioners?
So I had the opportunity to do a little work on this with Jeff after Jody left, and just going through and looking at all of the conversation and communication that had gone back and forth between Jeff over the last certainly 2 years. And I think there was some work, in fact, when Aaron Frost was here, with communication going back and forth, figuring out how do we administer our plan, because some things were not clear to the point of what we're clarifying. It was something that had been administratively decided by a prior HR director that we were doing, but it wasn't clarified in the plan as to how we handled leaves. And so that was a key piece, and the only piece that we're doing that wasn't required by the closure of the plan or the change in Oregon law. So I think this will be a great cleanup document, and Commissioner Olson's work looking at the RFP and how we administer this going forward, it should make it easier for another organization, should we choose one through that process, to assist us in administering the plan, to do that, because those questions that were there previously about how we make decisions are no longer a question. So I'm hopeful that this may be the last restatement of the plan, since we're closing it to new entrants, and will just give us what we need to move forward, in a clear manner. So, yeah.
Commissioner Olson?
Thank you. My understanding is essentially, as Commissioner Scar indicated, the switch occurs for new employees after the first of the year over to Oregon PERS, which is by far the largest retirement for public employees in the state of Oregon. Currently, as mentioned, I've been working, and we have an RFP on the street to select two parts of a four-part system. One is a custodian, possibly a plan administrator, and the other is a firm or individual who would select the various securities in the investment portfolio. And that closes on Friday at 3, and so we'll see where that goes. But this is a part of it that memorializes the switch over to PERS for new employees. And there are a lot of trailing issues on the bigger picture, meaning what is the actuarial setup for the coming years, and that's a question for Millman Company, and that's probably the single biggest question. But this is part of a bigger picture, and I certainly support doing this, and happy to see that our legal counsel has this, because by all accounts, we've got an expert online right now. So I think we're good, and this is part of a much bigger picture, because it's a big item. It's not something that's really visible to the public so much as a lot of other things. But just by way of context, the retirement system for Tillamook County has a value of over $100 million. So we're not talking petty cash here. So I think we certainly go forward with what's recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Rachel, do you have anything you want to add to that? Okay. Okay. Well, I am also supportive. These are decisions that we've made previously, and I think the amendments are necessary to the work ahead. So I'm ready to move forward.
Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-073, in the matter of amending the retirement plan for certain employees of Tillamook County, Oregon, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Kirkney.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Item 6 is consideration of change order number 1 to contract number 6418, contract for general services with Day Wireless Systems for the upfitting police vehicles project. Matt Kelly, Tillamook County Undersheriff. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. For your consideration is the amended contract that we have with Day Wireless. Day Wireless is the company that we use to build our patrol vehicles. I remember when I first started, county shops used to do this. We'd purchase vehicle, the equipment would be installed by county shops. The console that holded all the equipment was made out of plywood. In 20-some years, it's advanced quite a bit. There's basically it's a driving computer. So it's pretty specialized skill, and Day Wireless has done a pretty good job for us over the last couple of years. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm somewhat familiar with Day Wireless. They've been servicing radio equipment for many years across Oregon. Very legitimate company, and this is just part of a much bigger picture. And so, yes, let's take it forward.
Commissioner?
I agree. Thank you.
All right, as do I. We're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 1 to contract number 6418, contract for general services with Day Wireless Systems for the upfitting police vehicles project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Matt, you have the next one also. Item 7 is consideration of a contract for goods with Tillamook Motor Company for the Sheriff's Office vehicle purchase.
Yes, this is a contract for a new Ford Interceptor, which an Interceptor is essentially the police model of an Explorer to replace some of our older fleet. That's about it, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Matt?
No, thank you.
No questions.
Okay.
New vehicles are a necessity, so.
Good. I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, consideration of a contract for goods with Tillamook Motor Company for the Sheriff's Office vehicle purchase, I move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Matt.
I think I have the next unscheduled.
Two more. No, one more.
Okay, yes. All right. Okay, unscheduled item number 1 is consideration of a contract for goods with Roberson Motors, Inc. for the Sheriff's Office vehicle purchase 2025 Ford Durango.
And almost identical to the one just before. It's just Durango is a competitive model of the Explorer for a new vehicle with Roberson Motor Company to replace one of our older trucks.
Okay, terrific. Commissioners, comments?
Well, thank you. Only question I have, are these referenced through the State of Oregon contract, or are these separate based on your needs?
They're separate based on our needs.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
No question.
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of contract for goods with Roberson Motors, Inc. for the Sheriff's Office vehicle purchase 2025 Ford Durango, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, our next unscheduled item, number 2, is acknowledgement of receipt of the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council's annual report to Tillamook County. I am listed as the person who is carrying this item, and so I just want to acknowledge that we have received the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council's annual report. We're grateful for their work, and I believe the report is on our website in case the public is interested. And is there anything either of you would like to say about it?
I'm pleased that we've received their report and that they're moving forward in really reconstituting. This has been a couple of year process for them, and they have recently hired a temporary interim watershed council manager in partnership with Tillamook Estuaries Partnership, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you. That was just a 2-page or 2 or 3 pages, fairly. I did read it, and it looked to be accurate as near as I could tell, and it's good to keep the flow of information coming in, because sometimes these things get put on a shelf and you sort of forget about them. So the fact that it comes up again and is put on the record, I think is a good thing. So good.
I agree, and it's important work. It's good work. It's important work. I'm grateful that they're doing it, and I was glad to read about what they're up to.
Perfect.
Okay,
So do we need a motion acknowledging the receipt, right?
I don't think we do. I think we
Just needed it in the record. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. So we're moving on to item 8, which is consideration of an Oregon Department of Emergency Management Performance Grant Agreement. And with us, we have Randy Thorpe, Director of Emergency Management. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning. This is our normal yearly contract that, with a grant through the Office of Emergency Management, but it is flow-through money from FEMA, of course. It's a little late, and it's because you're wondering, because the date on it is July 1st. But OEM decided to redo their contracts to make sure their contracts for all their grants were fairly similar, that the template was fine. And because it had to go through all those wonderful channels, it finally got approved through all their channels so they could send it out. So as soon as we get it back to them, we can start asking for money on reimbursement. So anyway, this is, it's a reimbursement, and it's a little higher this year than normal. It's 76,117. The reasons why is that the state kicked in a little extra money to the tune of about $9,000 to just sweeten the pot, I guess. And so that just allows us, so we have to match at least that, and I think we match a little bit more than that. So we're usually pretty good on that end there, and I submit our RFRs, our request for reimbursement quarterly. And also with that, I submit progress reports to them to make sure that their money is being spent correctly. So it's just an ongoing thing. I sat in a meeting yesterday where they're talking about revising this type of grant. So I don't know what's going to happen next year, but we'll just wait and see.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Randy?
Thank you. I was trying to think of something where I could put them on the spot and embarrass them, but I can't. So
The next one, you got another chance.
I do. No, I think this is appears to be routine. I will point out again how many emergencies we have around here and how we are at risk, and to have someone who's on top of this from the grant side of it, the operational side of it, is a good thing. As I drove up from Pacific City this morning, I came along Sand Lake Road, and there's a tree of about 4 foot in diameter that laying alongside the road. Looks like part of it went through a house. And there are some of our county folks down there from Public Works, PUD people, and so we do have storms. We had a pretty good one in the middle of the night. Our power was out for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours, and I know there's a lot of power outages around the county, and so we live in an area subject to that, and I'm glad we have this gentleman here that's got his arms around this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Happy that the grant is coming forward. Maybe it was a $9,000, we're sorry, it's late payment, unlikely,
care.
but the state tends to have that sense that they'll get to it when they get to it, and we'll just deal with it. So we do, but we're appreciative of the additional money. So I'm definitely in support.
As am I. I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of an Oregon Department of Emergency Management Performance Grant Program Agreement, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And to Commissioner Olson's point about the countywide power outages, I'm just curious how many people in this room have power outages. I know Commissioner Scar did not. Did the rest of us? No? Okay. So more than half of us have power outages. Okay. We'll move on to item 8, consideration of an Oregon Department of Emergency Management. 9, consideration of an Oregon Department of Emergency Management Homeland Security Grant Agreement number 24-231.
This is, again, a grant that it comes out every year for us to be able to apply for. And the money is tied to Homeland Security. So justification has to be made to where it benefits and makes our county more protected against any type of terrorism or other types of things, plus any type of disasters. That's also Homeland Security. So this year I decided to be a little different and to see if I could get a vehicle purchased. I know that the amount of $33,000 isn't a lot, but I did some preliminary, and there is vehicles out there that can fall in that would meet the needs here. There is no restriction on make, model, old, new, as long as it's got 4 wheels. And the other thing too, because it's a vehicle and it's something different than people normally ask for, they come up with a few other little things that I'm going to have to do. And one of them is of course, we're going to be responsible for licensing, insurance, and maintenance of the vehicle, like all our other vehicles that we get. And the caveat to it is because I have to tie it to Homeland Security, it is being called a mobile command vehicle. And so it'll be equipped, of course, with communications, which would anyway. Plus, we'll have a lot of other supplies in it that it would have anyway, that is tied towards this. And I have to keep a daily log of my mileage, which is going to be interesting. So, but I sat down with the individual that administers this grant for them, and we talked through it, and so we're both on the same page of exactly how we're going to utilize this vehicle, and it will be according to the FEMA guidelines that come out with terrorism. So, so we'll have some kind. So I'm not as good as the sheriff's office, so I won't be able to probably get a 2005 Durango, but there's quite a few out there that fall within this. And plus, when I go through the state purchasing, because I really don't care where it comes from, I think we will definitely be able to bring in something fairly good at this price.
Good for you. Okay, Commissioners?
Thank you. No, I don't have any questions. I do, when we're done with this, I would like to ask him to take a moment or two and talk about his intern and what she's up to. I asked him just in passing, I think yesterday, and it might be helpful because I know she came before the commission and was introduced a while back. So maybe we could take another moment and he could update us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, it sounds like a good idea. And Randy, remind me, you're currently driving a Ford Taurus that we surplus from another department.
Yes.
And do I dare ask the year of what you're currently driving?
Personal vehicle is what I've been driving, and then Ann has been using the Taurus.
Okay, Ann's got the Taurus.
Yeah, and I've been using the Taurus when I'm not just around here. When I went to Salem and that, we kind of share it.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing that, but just the normal routine stuff, that's the way it's been. And the Taurus, actually, we've got it up and running again. We revived it.
Which tells us something when we say it had to be brought to be up and running again. So I think it's just one of those constant reminders that in Tacoma County, we do not get rid of vehicles until we have driven them to the very end of their life. And in this case, we have the opportunity for a new vehicle at the cost of the Office of Emergency Management. So great work, Randy. Appreciate that.
I agree. Well done, you. You know, this is terrific initiative to get something that you need and get Homeland Security to pay for it. And so I applaud your efforts, and I'm glad they were successful. So good job.
And I'll take everybody for a ride after we get one.
Woohoo! Around the block we go.
Okay. All right. We're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of Oregon Department of Emergency Management Homeland Security Grant Agreement number 24-231, I move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Commissioner?
Yes, if you would, just take a moment, and I asked you, I think yesterday, about the intern. I hadn't seen her for a while, but you've got her to working on a number of issues that sounded rather interesting and beneficial if they come through. Could you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, the first one that we put her on was she attended the TC4 meetings with all the volunteer groups. And so right now she's offering her service and help to help each individual group to come up with a strategic plan. Some said, you don't need the help, and others said, please come in and help us. And so she's been scheduling meetings with those who are interested in developing one and moving forward. And so she's going to start doing that there. Like I say, there was a few that just, they're self-sufficient and they're able to, and they've already got one. And so that was one thing I really pushed her on there. She also has been doing, she's developed my little surveys I put together, and one was with our Emergency Operating Center to try to see what interests we have out there for people that want to participate. So she developed that, collected all the information, and then brought that back to me. And now we've developed one on trying to come up with a resource list of things that would be available to us during an emergency. And with that, everybody says, oh yeah, so-and-so, yeah, Commissioner Olson, go ahead, yeah, he'll give us his backhoe, but nothing's official. And so that's what we're trying to do now, is to find out what we have out there in the ways of equipment and get a contact number. And she's been updating a lot of the contact numbers that we already have. So she's been working on that because I want to come up with a a current resource list that we can utilize. And it's not me, but other departments do in case of emergency. And so she's been working on that. Then the other thing that's she's been working on, and it's been interesting, is I was telling Commissioner Olson about this. It's a animal evacuation plan for the county, and so we started going. You know, she's talked to the fairs, she's talked to veterinarians, she's talked to our shelter people that we have here, and you know, finding out what's available and what we can do. And so she's developing that plan, and then we talked about, you know, what are we going to board if the county opens a shelter, what type are we going to do? Yes, the fairgrounds, we can take large animals. What's that? Yes, goat and above or something there, and without much problem, because camming's very, very agreeable for something like that during an emergency. But then the issue came up with pets, small animals. And there is a way, you know, you can set up a shelter for small animals. Then she called, the only one that's got something similar to theirs is in Washington County. And she called that individual, and he said they do not want to be in the business of sheltering people's pets. Liability, well, number one, and just it's too extensive, too much manpower to do that. And when you're in an emergency, do you have that much people that can run a shelter for small animals? So that's the thing we're looking at right now, is what we want to do. And of course, we'll get everybody's input before we decide if the county wants to be in charge of that. And that's another thing that our legal counsel can definitely look at, is that if we open the shelter under county control, where's that going to put us? You know, so that's just, another thing we're going to do. We want to get something in writing so we can show people, instead of just asking their opinion now, and get something and saying, okay, where is this going to go with that? So, but so she's been working on that. You know, she's again been working with 4-H group, the extension service, and I told her Farm Bureau would be another one, because the thing that we may need to get into this plan, and what I want to know, is that a lot of our dairy farms probably have already worked it out with some neighboring people with fields to where they could move their cows during flood or whatever. And so we need to make sure that that is happening. If not, kind of encourage it possibly. And so that's kind of a big plan that she's working on there. And there's, and then we're going to switch gears a little bit on her probably after the first year. And because I've got the Community Wildfire Protection Plan grant, and we're going to need somebody local to kind of help the contractor that we hire. We just got funding. I haven't brought it before you because I just approved the grant that I sent out after Rachel approved it. They approved it, and so that's another chunk of money to redo our emergency response plan for hazardous material, which is tied to that group, the LAPC, the Local Emergency Preparedness Committee. And it's basically was set up to deal with hazmat issues within each county. And so you've got people who are interested in that type of issue. Of course, fire departments are there, cheese factories there, because they have this stuff. And so we're trying to get that group back up and running again. And part of that is that they have a county-wide emergency response plan. Plus, the fire marshal's office, who oversees this program, wants us to move to an all hazards, just not hazmat on emergency response, because there could be other issues that this plan could cover. We have a plan, but it's 2017. And so I was looking at updating. I'm meeting with a possible contractor this Friday to find out if he can do it for what we have, and see samples of his work to get that done. And then again, we're going to have somebody local to oversee and help. And that's the problem of finding too much money, is that you've got to find some help to help oversee it. So that's a little bit of what she's going to do there is, and she has some experience in contracts, administering contracts. She did it over in the Dalles. So, you know, some of her time, it's not going to be full time for her, but just somebody that can keep an eye on them and keep them moving forward. And then whatever else we decide to come up with between now and when we lose her in June. But it's been beneficial. It's kind of nice just to give out a task and have it done. You know, so it's kind of fun. I'm getting used to it's a problem.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay.
It was interesting when we were talking, you don't stop and think about it so much, but there's an awful lot of animals around here that are not production animals like cows. And there are dogs and cats and family pets of all kinds, and you know, what becomes of them if there's a big one. So, good questions.
Yeah, and my concern is that I can't be involved in a shelter. I'm involved in people. You know, that's my number one priority. And so we'd have to, again, find somebody that would oversee that type of program, because it can't really fall under emergency management unless you decide to hire some more people, hint, hint. But anyway, that's the other thing that we have to look at is how can we administer that type of program? Do we have people that can do it, or where we're at? 'Cause it's great to have a plan, but if no one can implement it, we can implement it, you know, through emergency management, but I can't be the liaison, I can't be the shelter manager. And so that's a lot of things that, you know, she's working on, and that's what we have to find. And she's reaching out and finding out who wants to be involved. And that's the key. Everybody wants it, but nobody wants to be involved. They just want you to do it. And so she's trying to break down that barrier. So anyway,
Thank you.
as we get further, I may do a briefing with you or something on a Wednesday afternoon, as soon as we have something a little bit more in place.
Terrific. I'd love to meet with Ann and just visit with her about that, because I had ideas about it after the Otis fires. And specifically, I was thinking people were trying to move their horses, for example, and it was in a limited area. And I was thinking if we had a list of farmers in various areas, say north, central, south, who could tell us we have room to host 6 horses or whatever. You know, a lot of farms, hopefully after the 96 flood, built those big flat structures that I can't remember the name of, the table structures, so their cows can evacuate up onto those structures. So the dairy farmers hopefully have that covered. I don't know that they do, but I know some do. But what showed up in the Otis fires was that people with horses needed someplace to take their horses, and it seems like there could be not a shelter run by the county, but an agreement among other landowners, like, yes, we could take X number of animals in an emergency. So I'd love to connect.
Yeah, that's I've kind of steered that way too, because me and you talk. That's one reasons why I threw this at her, is because your interest in having something like that. And that's I think the biggest thing is that most people with pets are going to take them with them. They're not going to stick them in a shelter and then leave. Mm-hmm. And so to me, the real important, just like you said, and to bring them clear up to the fairgrounds, maybe not be possible. You know, so you're exactly right, is to try. And so we are steering her, but I'll tell her to reach out to you. She's going to take some time off for Christmas for some strange reason. So I'll just let her know to hook up and send you some dates and times that she's available, and then you can schedule a time, because you're kind of the reasons why this is going forward.
Okay,
so,
well then.
And so I would appreciate you making sure that we meet your expectations with it. So
thank you.
So anyway.
All right. Thank you for your work, Randy. Appreciate it.
Well, have a great day. I saw 29 things on here.
Yeah, it's a full day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 10, which is consideration of professional services agreement 24/25-013 with Synergy Health Consulting for trauma-informed wellness trainings and planning. And with us we have
Maya.
well, hi, Maya. Sorry, I need new glasses, so I couldn't read your name across the room on the screen. Good morning, Maya.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for having me in Marlene's absence. My name is Maya Vins-Vibrock. I am an administrative specialist for the Health and Human Services Department. My first item, as mentioned, is seeking approval for a contract with Synergy Health Consulting for wellness and trauma-informed wellness for staff and patients. We are contracting with consultant Nadezhda Razi Roberson, who will be coordinating the work with a focus on equity, inclusion, and wellness for staff and patients over the next 12 months per the scope of work in the attached document, starting in January with goals to promote workplace wellness, integrate trauma-informed practices, and strengthen organizational capacity. This project is being implemented with the ARPA funds designated for this purpose, which relates to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or JDI efforts.
Thank you, Maya. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Maya, for presenting this morning. I actually just finished the hour Tillamook strategic planning with Synergy Consulting and with Nadezhda specifically. So I'm super excited that she's working with the health department. She's a wealth of knowledge, information, great facilitator. I know it will be good work. And this is important work. As we have been looking at both state contracting and the requirements in state contracting to make sure that we are meeting the requirements of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The health field has been exceptionally, I guess I would say, leading in that area, and this is a piece that we need to make sure we're meeting. It's also really important as we look at our staff and our patients that trauma-informed care be the way that we are moving forward so that everyone has the best outcome. So I'm super excited to have this contract underway and have this work done in our health setting.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. I, again, have no expertise at all on what's going on in the health department, but I'm assuming this is part of a much bigger picture. And again, I'll offer what I've said so many times is we have a health department here, I think, is the envy of a lot. They just simply do so much for so many people, including medical, dental, psychiatric help if needed. They just run the whole gamut, and this would be part of it. So I'm good.
Okay, terrific. I am supportive also.
Madam Chair, in consideration of professional services agreement number 24/25-013 with Synergy Health Consulting for trauma-informed wellness trainings and planning, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Maya, are you taking the next item also?
I am.
Terrific. It is item 11, consideration of amendment number 3 to the risk sharing agreement with Care Oregon, Columbia Pacific Coordinated Care Organization, and Tillamook County Community Health Center. Maya.
Forgive me if this one gets a little confusing. This isn't my realm exactly. But this is an amendment to an agreement originally signed in 2021 for a 3-year period. So this amendment extends that term date another year through December 2025. This risk share agreement with Columbia Pacific Coordinated Care Organization and our health center is for upside and downside risk for when the health center and providers in the county achieve patient cost of care metric targets. So this means if the cost of care exceeds the projected target, then that results in a downside risk, meaning the county partners may have to pay back funds. But if we meet or are lower than the projected cost of care target, then that results in an upside risk. So the county receives funds to invest in services for the county. County healthcare partners have set aside funds to deal with downside risk for about 2 to 3 period to cover funds in the case of a downside trend. The same partners are working together to identify shared local and community projects for investments of upside risk share funds. So for example, there was a first project of the risk share group that was a housing project for $250,000. And then there's another $150,000 for a second project that has yet to be determined. Commissioner Scar may have more to say about this if she's more familiar with it.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you. No, Maya, I think you did a fabulous job of explaining it. It really is just the opportunity if the business is going well with the Columbia Pacific CCO and there are revenues available that we get to share in those in our community for investment in our community. But similarly, if it is not going as well financially, there is the requirement then that we share in that as well. I believe that for every dollar perhaps that would be lost, we have to pay, I think, 25% of that. So while there is a risk on the other side, if it's not going well, it is a small risk compared to the return for when it is going well. And I believe there's been 3 million-ish received into that risk share pool from times when it's been going well. So as Maya shared, they have put some away for the times when it might not be going as well. So, and we're headed into a period of time where it may not be going as well. As we have come out of the pandemic, it's been a very challenging time for every industry, but the medical industry and healthcare in particular, as costs have skyrocketed, the number of people on the plan has skyrocketed, and those seeking care did not seek care during the pandemic. And so many of the issues that people are coming and presenting with are far more expensive than they would have been previously. So we're definitely in a challenging part of the cycle, but we're prepared for that and riding that through for the times that will again return where we can get a return on investment makes it worth being in the risk share agreement.
Terrific. Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. Again, I have no real expertise, but I find what I would consider a novel arrangement of where there's an upside and a downside, and there's some financial sharing based on how well it performs and what's done. And I don't think that happens with a lot of government type contracts. So maybe this is a way forward. We'll see more of it, but I certainly support where we are today.
Thank you, as do I. I think it's an interesting model and certainly worthwhile.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of amendment number 3 to the risk sharing agreement with Care Oregon, Columbia Pacific Coordinated Care Organization, and Tillamook County Community Health Center, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Maya.
Thank you.
Item 12 is consideration of amendment number 3 to contract 6298 with Claire Company for building inspection services. With us, we have Sarah Absher, Director of Community Development. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much. And before you is the annual authorization and amendment of an existing contract with Claire Company. They are one of our third-party partners that supports the department, specifically the building division, when support is needed for overflow plan reviews, filling in for inspectors when they are out on leave, etc. So it's that time of year again. They're a great partner for us, and we appreciate you considering this contract renewal. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you for bringing this forward, Sarah. This has definitely been a lifesaver for us as we have had our building official transitions in the past. We are currently in a building official transition again. So having kept them on board and using them sparingly, and now the opportunity exists just to make sure that our building industry continues to roll forward even as we may have staffing changes or we may have surges in building in our community. For example, we've just brought in many permits related to the biological opinion and folks who got their floodplain permits in ahead of the December 1st timeline. So we have a surge of projects that we'll be working through. So having Claire Company on board as an overflow staffing really is crucial to the department's operation. So I appreciate the relationship that you have built and continue to maintain with them, Sarah.
Commissioner?
Thank you. I would agree with Commissioner Scar that this is a backup and a good way to do it. I don't know anything about Claire Company. How large are they? And I'm assuming they can handle our account, but are they spread too thin or are they a good sized firm?
That's a great question, Commissioner. They, I believe, have firms nationwide. The office we work with is out of Corvallis. They provide a suite of plan review for structural plan review and inspection services. There have been very few times over the course of the last couple of years where they have been unable to provide immediate service for an inspection. And so typically it's a 2 to 3 day turnaround if we need someone, if they don't have someone to come the next day. So they have been very timely, very efficient. I like the way that they work. And I would say, I don't know entirely how large their company is, but I would say that, they offer a broad depth and range of services. So like the NCRD pool project, that is a very unique project. You don't see those types of construction projects often. They have staff on hand that have those inspection certifications that are unique and not typical in a local jurisdiction. So they partnered with us on that. The Amazon warehouse building, the design of that has some unique features. And then other projects like the Adventist Hospital, they're doing a surgical unit expansion. So there's some special licensing and inspections that go with that. And so the day-to-day stuff are things that we can handle unless we have an inspector that's taking some time off, that we are easily able to arrange coverage and support with them for in advance. But I think where this firm really comes in is that they have those special licensing certifications that we need for unique projects that are coming to Tillamook County, where not only Tillamook County, but other jurisdictions just simply don't have those specialized services available. And so that's what I think really sets them apart and makes our partnership so valuable.
Thank you. That's a good answer. So I take it that they spend a fair amount of time in the county hands-on. It's not all done electronically.
That is correct. And a lot of those inspections, you might have Carlson Testing or PSI, where they have their special inspectors that come in, generate a report, and then these folks come down, and I actually send our staff with them to the site because I still want a representative from Tillamook County also on that job when those inspections occur. So it is an effort to where they come down, I have somebody on site, and then oftentimes that other engineer or geoprofessional that's doing that work is also there. So we do virtual meetings. We'll do construction weekly project update meetings where Claire, if we need them for an inspection that's coming up, they will participate online virtually, or if there's a complex plan review that we're doing like the pool. So it is definitely a hybrid of them being here in the office on the site and then available virtually when we need to have those conversations.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. I support this also. I think we need it, and I'm glad we're moving forward with it.
So,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, in consideration of amendment number 3 to contract number 6298 with Claire Company for building inspection services, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
We have the next one also, consideration item 13, consideration of a financial contribution and membership pledge to the Oregonians for floodplain protection.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is something that we have been talking about extensively in terms of the FEMA biological opinion. What is before you today is that membership and donation pledge. We are moving into litigation. I spent last night with the attorneys working on my deposition. So we had a meeting last night because those of us that are filing depositions as part of this litigation are working on finalizing those now. Commissioner Bell is the contact person for the membership because I sit on the board. My name is at the bottom of the form. So it made more sense to have her be the contact for that. We have talked about a donation and a pledge of roughly $10,000. And so I did leave that space on the form blank in case you wanted to visit about that. I would just say there are some counties and jurisdictions that are kicking in a lot more money. So we're seeing like Clatsop County has contributed $25,000. There are others that are putting into the funds to support Oregonians for floodplain protection, along with private industries. We have contributed between my time, your time, my resources, and the costs to use and work with Molly through the NEPA review process and others. Tillamook County has been a long time contributor to these efforts. So I would say in terms of a larger donation, I think we are doing our part and more already. So my recommendation would be to stick to the $10,000, and then that would be our contribution, at least for this coming year.
Thank you, Sarah. Commissioners?
But I agree with Sarah's assessment. I think the amount of in-kind support that Tillamook County has provided to this project, Sarah is the expert across the state of Oregon on the biological opinion. A lot of time has been spent bringing other communities, cities, counties, and private partners along in understanding. So absolutely, we want to be on the record as a contributor. We do 100% support, I believe, this lawsuit based on conversations we've had. I know that I do. It's the next step that we need to take. Being in a member with the Oregonians for Floodplain Protection is important, but I think a financial contribution of 10,000 is appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. I absolutely support what we're doing as well, and I think you're quite right. We've taken a lead on this, Sarah has, and I think others are looking to Tillamook County to see where we go and where they might go as well. Do you have any idea from council if this actually goes into court and something doesn't happen prior to, what the cost might be, and then has she said anything about what it might be if it's kicked up to the Ninth Circuit?
Yeah, that's a good question, Commissioner. So that is something that we have been discussing. So with this, I would say these litigation efforts, this is a marathon. It could take years. And there's two fronts of litigation that are underway. One is under the Pickums and the other is under the 2016 biological opinion itself. To work through those efforts for litigation, we're looking at anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000, which is why we are working with jurisdictions and private industries on contributions on an annual basis. So to date, we have raised, I think, roughly $200,000 with a $100,000 match that came from the National Association of Realtors. So myself, Senator Johnson, Molly, and Jeremy Rogers from the Oregon Realtors Association testified at that national conference in Boston last month. So with that $100,000 match, we're sitting at about $200,000 in pledges right now. So we have enough to start, and we are ready to get started on this litigation. We'll see where it goes from there. But
no talk of what if it went up to the Ninth Circuit yet? Maybe that's way premature, I suppose. But
yeah, that I would say so. I mean, there's litigation that will probably be filed in the state of Oregon over the Pickums, and then there's going back to district court, especially with the dismissal of the 2017 lawsuit. So we'll see what happens, but we do feel our case is ripe at this point. It was dismissed because we could not prove harm before. FEMA had promised communities and the courts that they would not enact or take any action to require local jurisdictions to change their codes before the NEPA review process was done. And of course, with that July 15th letter, that all changed. So we feel we are in a position to make a run at this again.
Two people have asked me over the last week or 10 days, what is the sense, if there is any, on a new administration? Would they go in there and clean house and straighten this out politically or administratively? Or I mean, who knows? But have you heard anything through the side door on that particular issue?
Well, I think folks are aware that Bon Amici is taking a more aggressive stance on trying to shepherd through another pause through Congress. In terms of the lawsuit and a change in administration, it's questionable how much can be done by the new administration because this is a lawsuit. But I can tell you that any and all avenues are being aggressively pursued at this time.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, I would just add that from the AOC perspective, there's a lot of work being done with the new administration's transition team and really looking at who will come into the different layers of management in all different agencies across the spectrum, but FEMA being one of those, and AOC is in communication with the NACO level folks who are working on what can happen in that transition and making sure the transition team understands this is a key issue for Oregon and certainly other states going forward, and the need to have conversations with people who are looking at, coming into secretaries and deputy secretaries and assistant deputy secretaries to look at what, actions they feel they may be able to take, and putting this as an issue right up front. So, none of us know where any of that will go, but it's an interesting federal process right now. Similar things are happening on the federal timber front with looking at how Oregon can be part of a larger coalition that's impacting, who gets appointed to which positions, with the intent and idea of helping with some of these key issues that, we're suffering and being pressured under.
I think stay tuned.
Stay tuned is, I guess, what I would say, yeah.
And I too have received some inquiries from people wanting to know if the incoming administration could change the outcome of this. And it seems to me like, because this is a lawsuit, as Sarah said, and it's not coming from FEMA, it's coming through FEMA. FEMA's administering it, but because it's a lawsuit, that makes it that much more complicated. Right. Whereas if this was just FEMA was forcing these new regulations on us, then I think our legislators and our president could push on the agency to change that. But because it's a lawsuit, it's just more convoluted. So I'm glad, Sarah, that you mentioned Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici's letter and her lead to try to influence other legislators to enact another pause. So thanks for bringing that up, because I was going to. So bravo, Congresswoman Bonamici, and for trying to protect us in that way. And I am certainly in support of a financial contribution and membership pledge to Oregonians for floodplain protection, and supportive of the lawsuit. And also, it occurred to me while we were talking about this today, so it just occurred to me today, so that's why you have no lead time on this suggestion, that maybe we need to capture the dollar amount of our in-kind contributions, because because this is a coalition and other counties and cities are contributing to it, their contributions, everyone's contributions, are going to be known, are going to be public. And I feel like we're leading this essentially, and we need to be role models in paying for it also. So I don't assume that all those other people know what our in-kind contribution is, and it's vast. So I would ask that you try to capture that and include that in our listed contributions, so people understand we're putting in $10,000 in cash and tens of thousands in in-kind contribution.
I've actually been tracking that somewhat. Some of my time, I haven't done a good job in tracking my time, but I think it's fair to say that a tremendous amount of my time has gone to this.
Yeah.
But I actually will have those numbers for you in a few days.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So
Yeah, because I'm curious too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it just needs to be captured in the documentation, because we really do want to be role models for people to participate. And if they think, oh well, Tillamook County's only doing 10,000, why are we doing more?
Great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a financial contribution and membership pledge to Oregonians for floodplain protection, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to item 14, consideration of a grant agreement under the fiscal year 2022 Culvert AOP program with the Federal Highway Administration for the Mill Creek and Mill Creek Tributary B Salmon Superhighway Fish Passage Restoration Bridge Project. With us, we have Chris Leidy, Director of Public Works. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the same as last week, we had Myrtle Creek. The grant was submitted in February of 2023. We were awarded 2 out of 9 awards in the state of Oregon. This particular project is to remove aquatic organism passages, so a small culvert on Brickyard Road. So there's 2 that are undersized and having problems with it. So the total award on this is the total cost is 1.9 million, 1,866,000. Our match on that's $373,200. This was awarded in two phases. Phase one is the preliminary design in NEPA documentation, National Environmental Protection Act. And that's where we take a look at wetlands. We take a look at historical, cultural, anything out there that might trigger an issue with NEPA. The first phase is $198,600, and that has a county match of $49,650. The next phase, which would be construction, would be released in obligated after approval of the preliminary design in NEPA by Federal Highway. So we do have funds for the $49,650, and we will dedicate funds for the construction component of this, which is anticipated to be the summer of 2027. Any questions?
Thank you. No, it's another part of Salmon Superhighway. I'm continually impressed with what they have done and what they're able to do and how they marshal resources from every direction and make these things happen. And to the extent we can contribute and help, I think that's a great thing. There's a lot of stuff getting done that has probably been on the books or deferred maintenance for 30, 40 years, and they're helping fix it. So keep it going.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Agreed. These are always great projects and really appreciate what we are able to accomplish with a very small amount of county money based on the Salmon Superhighway funding that comes through. I mean, 1.9 million, I think he said, 370 some odd of that is ours. So that is a significant investment in Tillamook County's infrastructure that is being made by outside money.
Agreed. I'm very grateful for that partnership for the reasons my colleagues have mentioned. We couldn't afford to do it by ourselves, and I'm grateful for your work in this, Chris, for building those relationships so that we can continue to do that work together. So thank you. We're ready for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of a grant agreement under the fiscal year 2022 Culvert AOP program with the Federal Highway Administration for the Mill Creek and Mill Creek Trib B Salmon Superhighway Fish Passage Restoration Bridge project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Okay, item 15 is consideration of an order in the matter of the reappointment and appointment of members to the Tillamook County Road Advisory Committee. Chris.
So the County Road Advisory Committee, they do help to inform our issues. They help on the financial side. They review our budget. When it comes to prioritization, they look at that and help to formulate the budget that goes with that. They also get involved fairly heavily with recommending approval for work on a local access road. Sometimes these are fairly critical. The crack, which I didn't come up with that, but I really like it, is they will talk to the property owners on the local access road, sometimes recommend approval, pretty much every time require a local match. Local match is typically about 67% or higher for locals to kick in if the crack members choose to do that. It's a 9-member firm. Currently, we have 7. You'll be seeing an advertisement for the remaining 2. There are 3. It's intended to have 3 in North County, 3 in Central County, 3 in South County. We have struggled sometimes to get people in the North County and the South County. Central County is usually not much of an issue. Bob Garrigus, Barbara Oftermeyer, and Frank Knight. Those appointments expire on December 31st. Bob Garrigus and Barbara Oftermeyer qualified. They are willing to be reappointed as members of the Tillamook County Road Advisory Committee. Frank Knight III has declined to be reappointed for another term. He works at the fire department up there, and his duties are keeping him away from this. Dan Weitzel is he was the former public works director for the city of Manzanita. He now works full-time for the fire department. He would be a great asset to the crack to help advise. Certainly has the understanding, being the former public works director for Manzanita, and also the firefighter. He drives our roads frequently. So Dan had met with the crack and they'd asked questions. He answered them, and we recommend that he is appointed as a member to the crack.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. I don't care for the acronym CRAC, but it is what it is. And I've been to the meetings now over the past year and meeting basically every other month. And it is a really well-organized, I'd call it a definitive group. I think the last 2 or 3 meetings, there have been citizens who've come in with a particular issue and they listen patiently. Chris is able to bring it up through the magic of Google Earth and a few other things, bring it up on the screen, and we can get right down to the driveway level of why something works or doesn't work. And so they're very responsive to people. They're very responsive to the system. They understand budget constraints. And so of all the advisory groups I've worked with over the years, this is one of the better ones. They come in there, they don't get anything. I'm not even sure you give them a bottle of water, but they show up for 2 hours, rain or shine, and they take up these issues. And some of them are rather, shall we say, nuanced, and then others are intense and emotional. I remember one group that basically they couldn't put their youngsters on a road to catch a school bus because of certain difficulties with the road. And so, you know, it's right down one-on-one local government with the people. And this is really good group. So I would absolutely support putting them on again if they're willing to put that kind of time in. And it's really a very thoughtful group. And I've seen them where we Chris and his group thought, well, we're going to do A, B, C, D, and the road advisory committee will say, you better move those priorities around because, and they had logical reasons for doing it. So they're not just a rubber stamp. They truly serve the people of Tillamook County, and I think it's a good group.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I absolutely in support, always appreciate those who are willing to serve, and I have not been a part of this group, so I will just thank my colleague for that very descriptive sort of conversation about what they do. We appreciate them.
Thank you. I appreciate them also, and I really like your description as well. I'm grateful for their longstanding service. Some of them have been on that committee for a long time. So I'm grateful for Bob and Barbara, who are willing to be reappointed. I'm grateful for Chief Knight's service, as he's now the chief of Nehalem Bay Fire Department. I understand why he has decided not to continue on the group, and it's made me smile to listen to you talk about it, Chris, because I would imagine that he may have pushed Dan Weitzel in that direction because Dan now works for him. Yeah, a little bit. So, but Dan will be a great contributor to the group. So I think that's terrific, and I'm grateful they're willing to serve. I think we're ready.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-074, in the matter of the reappointment and appointment of members to the Tillamook County Roads Advisory Committee, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Thank you, Chris. Item 16 is consideration of a contract for goods with the Tillamook Motor Company for the purchase of 2 2025 Ford Escape vehicles for the Department of Community Development Building Division. With us, we have Sean Blanchard, Tillamook County Treasurer. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Commissioners. The previous building official had started the process of ordering 2 vehicles for the Community Development Building Department. Make sure distinguish between general fund and building department, a special revenue fund. And this is to complete that contract obligation. Bids were required and obtained before choosing the 2 Ford Escapes from Tillamook Motor.
Okay. Do we have any questions, comments?
This is, our inspectors put a lot of miles on their vehicles, and these are coming out of the building division, so I'm assuming these are our inspector vehicles. And again, we've already talked a little bit this morning about how important it is for us to be responsive to the community in the building industry, and this is a part of that. It's making sure that our folks have vehicles that are adequate and operable to get where they need to go. Inspectors will see multiple projects in a day. So I'm glad that we're able to update these and to have, again, reliable vehicles on the road.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. What is becoming of the vehicles that are being replaced? Do you know?
I will leave that up to Sarah. I'm assuming they will probably be surplus to the best of their ability.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, so two things. We have 2 trucks that we will keep on staff. Planners, they're used as backup for on-site sanitation. Our short-term rental license folks. So we will be sharing 2 of them. 2 of them will be surplused. And then we did budget these vehicles, and the reason why we're switching vehicles is because we are trying to go to something more cost efficient and fuel efficient that still has 4-wheel drive. So we'll use the trucks that we will keep to share with those other divisions and potentially in more inclement weather. And then we will have the newer vehicles to use as well, because those trucks do have a lot of miles on them. Commissioner Scars, correct. We have spent quite a bit of money at Ford trying to maintain them the last 2 years. And one of the things in putting the budget together and talking to Brian was we are getting to the point to where we are investing more in those trucks to keep them maintained than what they are worth when they are driven on a regular basis. So little sharing, new rigs that we can have for our folks to be out in the field predictably on a daily basis, and then we will surplus the rest.
Thank you.
And I appreciate Treasurer Blanchard mentioning that these vehicles will be paid through the building division budget and not through the general fund. Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of a contract for goods with Tillamook Motor Company for the purchase of 2 2025 Ford Escape vehicles for the Department of Community Development Building Division, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, item 17 is consideration of a subscription license agreement with MGT Impact Solutions LLC for database tool and platform access. Sean Blanchard.
Good morning again, Commissioners. As stated in the budget workshops earlier this year, the current MaxCars system that I use for the indirect cost allocation has gone away. If it breaks, I will have nothing and start from scratch. I was able to reach out to other counties and doing some Google research and was able to find MGT Impact Solutions, which carries what's called Verso. It's a cloud-based system for indirect cost allocations. I'm hoping with a new system, we'll be able to better describe to the departments that we are charging the indirect cost, what they are exactly being charged for. So this is the new system, and I'm hoping to get it in place before February. Crossing my fingers.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I'm ecstatic. We have all for many years struggled with the indirect cost system that we had. It has been around forever. It was set up by us. I don't think anyone who's still here. So knowing exactly what was happening inside that software was simply a question that couldn't be answered. So as we have moved forward and started looking at our budgetary pieces, we've really sort of dived in a little bit to the indirect to say, is it accurate? Is it correct? Our special revenue departments pay a portion of our treasury, our HR, our IS, et cetera, based on the work that they receive, but we've not been able to verify and show them in an easy way, here's why you're being charged what you're being charged. This new software will give us the opportunity to create the indirect cost allocation that we would like to see and be able to provide transparency to our different departments so they know what they're being charged. Why do they receive the amount of indirect cost to their department that they do? So I'm ecstatic. This is something we have needed for a long time and fits right in with the budget conversations we've been having.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. Well, yes, I support the indirect cost system philosophy because it brings a measure of reality of what's going on. Obviously, if you're the health department, pick a department, somebody else is doing your payroll, somebody else is taking care of legal matters, somebody else is taking care of insurance, all the things that go on inside a larger organization. I looked these people up, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what it is they do. But I'll take your word for it that they provide it. So my fundamental question is, can it be manipulated? And I mean that in the best sense of the word. In other words, if the formula calls for a certain amount of inputs and they change over a period of time, for example, let's say insurance requirements changed at the health department because of case law in liability. Can you modify that internally here, or do we need to go back to the authors and the holders of the copyright, or how does that work? In other words, how much flexibility does the county have to manage it from time to time as circumstances change?
So what we were when we were provided with the demo of the software system, it is capable of quarterly adjustments for cost allocation, monthly. So there's a lot more flexibility than what I'm currently using, which I think is a DOS system, is what MaxCars is. So yes, there is some additional flexibility with this system. I reached out to Clackamas County, which just implemented it, and so far so good. They're very happy with it, and it does allow flexibility for departments and department heads to be able to go into the cloud-based system and look at what currently they may be charged. So there's a lot of unknowns in my department. I'm Commissioner Olson. I don't know what else to answer, but it will be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. It was
I'm sure
a demo.
my question is, and I'll say it differently, if we find that it's not accurately reflecting what's really going on, can you change it, or do you need to bring in somebody from outside, meaning them?
It is the 2-year subscription also includes hourly what do I want to say, support and help during the year. So yes, if I need to change something, I can bring them in. If it's something I can't change on this end.
How long have they been around, you know?
I do not know. I don't believe they've been around more than 5 years.
And how long is this proposed contract?
2.
2 years, okay.
And I believe that Washington County or the city of Portland also implemented with their cost allocation with them.
Well, that may be a good reference, maybe not. Who knows? I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I'm happy we're moving forward. I know my years on the budget committee and others, that's been a topic of conversation every so often, because it's a lot of money and it needs to reflect reality. And in my judgment, it needs to be pretty flexible because stuff changes.
Yeah.
I am also encouraged about this. I don't know that I'm ecstatic.
We all have different weird passions.
Maybe you know more about it than I do, but I'm certainly encouraged. The Treasurer's Office definitely needs it. You need the indirect cost allocation software. And I am encouraged that we'll get a system that's more transparent. And because, of course, all our budgets are public, and as commissioners working with departments for which we're liaison when we're working through budgets with department directors or boards. And for example, I'll use the Fair Board as an example, and they say to their commissioner liaison, why on earth are we being charged $19,000 or whatever for their indirect cost allocation? And I know that you don't know, because with the current outgoing system, you don't know. And so I don't know, nobody knows. So it's this black box in our public budget that I'm really very pleased that we're resolving. So we'll be able to tell people, these are the services you receive, this is what it costs, this is why we're charging you this. So I think it's great. And we're ready for motion.
Okay, perfect. Madam Chair, in consideration of a subscription license agreement with MGT Impact Solutions, LLC for database tool and platform access, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes. Okay, item 18 is consideration of an order in the matter of appointment of a budget officer for Tillamook County for fiscal year 2025-2026. Sean Blanchard.
So this is just the formal yearly appointing me as the budget officer for Tillamook County. So when we work through the budget and the adoption of it, we have to have a budget officer.
Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Commissioners?
No questions, thank you. I think it's been that way, and I think every organization in the state of Oregon and probably elsewhere has a designated official who presents and signs off on certain things and forwards it to a governing body. So it's a pretty standard stuff, but nonetheless, it's an important position because there's a point of accountability. So.
Agreed. The government budgeting process is not simple. And when you look at the notifications that are required and the timelines and all of those different things that go into it, one single point of contact has to be on top of, are we meeting all of those so that we don't get ourselves into jeopardy with that? So I appreciate Sean's willingness to be the budget officer and make sure that we check every little box along the way to do it right.
I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-075 in the matter of the appointment of a budget officer for Tillamook County for fiscal year 2025-2026, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, we have a couple more of these. Item 19 is consideration of an order in the matter of the appointment of the county treasurer as the Solid Waste Service District Budget Officer. Sean?
Again, this is, as Commissioner Star said, just to cross T's, dot the I's of adopting a solid waste budget for fiscal year 25-26.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. Again, it's pretty routine, and I'll just remind people, lest you think solid waste is just an afterthought. It's a multi-million-dollar program here in Tillamook County.
And a service district. So that's why we have oversight over it.
Correct. It's part of the county and not. So, okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-076 and SWSD order number 24-010 in the matter of the appointment of the county treasurer as the Solid Waste Service District Budget Officer, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. And item 20, consideration of an order in the matter of the appointment of the 4-H and Extension Service District Budget Officer. Sean?
Again, this is a formality because they are in a service district, the 4-H extension. They require a budget officer, and when Troy Downing retired, they decided it was easier just to have the county treasurer appointed since it runs through the county also.
Very good. Commissioner?
I think recognition that this is not a requirement, that it be the treasurer, and we appreciate Sean's willingness to serve in this role as well.
Truly. Commissioner?
Same thing, certainly support, and it wasn't too long ago they appeared before the commission with some information. So they're a growing group here in Tillamook County. So if our treasurer can help them, good for all of us. So I'm in support.
All right. As am I, and I thank you for your service, Sean.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-077 and 4-H Extension Service Order number 24-003, in the matter of the appointment of the 4-H Extension Service District Budget Officer, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners.
Item 21 is consideration of a contract for goods with ODP Business Solutions for Dell laptop and equipment purchase.
So, Madam Chair, I'm going to take this for Jeff today.
Thank you.
So this is a contract for several laptops, desktops, monitors, docking stations for general fund departments, as well as MDT replacements, tough books for the sheriff's office, some of which are new items, some are budgeted items. All of this is to be paid out of ARPA funding.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Questions?
No, this is great. I know that the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of computer hardware was purchased, and we've been looking at, how do we continue with that and move forward as replacement is needed, and it feels like this is a slice of that pie. So happy that we're able to do this.
Commissioner?
Thank you. No, it's appears to be standard, and I did look up some state contract stuff today, and Dell is one of the preferred vendors for the state of Oregon, and I personally used some of their equipment over the years. It's good equipment, and I think most of us have a Dell product now, and they seem to work and keep working. So yes, let's get this one done.
Thank you. Bill?
Just following up on what Commissioner Olson said by way of public procurement, another jurisdiction went through the process of selecting competitive quotes, and we were able to piggyback on this to get this contract.
Terrific. All right, thank you. I am fully supportive also. Thank you for carrying this, Rachel.
As am I. My Q is not working on my keyboard, and so I'm super hopeful that maybe I'll get one of these.
Hopefully we don't need cues.
We don't need cues that often. If I stop and, give it a really firm press, I can get my cue. Okay, so Madam Chair, in consideration of a contract for goods with ODP Business Solutions for Dell laptop and equipment purchase, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay, item 22 is consideration of a non-prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Versatile Networks and Communications for the Assessor and Clerk Office Network Cable Installation Project.
Also carrying this from Mr. Underwood.
Thank you.
This is an ongoing project to update the wiring throughout the courthouse. Most of it's over 20 years old. So the first phase that we completed was in association with the DA's office remodel last year. The IS department is focusing on areas in the courthouse where they're most problematic, and they've identified the next location to begin work is in the assessor and clerk's office. So this is work paid for through ARPA funds to complete that work in those areas.
Terrific. Mr. Commissioner?
No questions. This is, it's crucial. Wire is not forever, contrary to what people may think. And, in order for us to have the best computer services and network services that are working, we have to have wire that carries the data at the appropriate speed. And you can have the best computer in the world, but if your wire is not up to date, it slows everything down. So I'm glad that we're getting this done throughout the courthouse.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. Yes, I talked to Jeff some time back about this, and as I recall, he was planning on doing the courthouse in 4 different segments. I don't know if that's still accurate, but like half of the first floor and half of the second and so on. And he had a pretty clear way forward to get this done because some wires just don't last, or there's better quality. Some are insulated better and have different dielectric projects, or not projects, but characteristics. So yes, this is simply an upgrade to what we have and had for a long time.
Thank you. I am supportive also. We're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a non-prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Versatile Networks and Communications for the Assessor and Clerk Offices Network Cable Installation Project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Rachel. Item 23 is consideration of an order in the matter of appointing a person to the position of county tax collector. Good morning. With us, we have Cassandra Larson, Tillamook County Assessor-elect.
Good morning. I'm right across the hall, so I thought I'd pop over.
Thank you.
Terrific.
So I am currently the Chief Deputy Assessor and Tax Collector for Tillamook County. Denise Vandekoevering is the retiring Assessor and Tax Collector. I am the Assessor-elect, and I am taking oath of office January 6th to fulfill that role. The Assessor is an elected position, and while that's an elected position, the Tax Collector is not an elected position. It is appointed by the board. In Oregon, out of the 36 counties, 30 of the assessors are elected, and also out of those 36 counties, 18 serve as assessors and tax collectors, and the remaining 50% serve as just assessors or assessor clerks. So for Tillamook County, the assessor is responsible for the valuation of all property in the county. That includes residential, commercial, farm and forest, utilities, and manufactured structures, and business personal property, and there's a few other miscellaneous ones. The tax collector is responsible for the billing and collection of property tax revenue for 29,000 accounts. This is $74.6 million in property tax revenue last year. The history is The tax collector office used to be independent, and it was an independent office that reported to the BOC. And somewhere in the mid-90s, there were budget cuts, and the department could no longer serve adequately to the public, and there were many complaints. Tim Lutz was the assessor at the time, and the BOC gave him no choice, and he was appointed the tax collector. He told me that the tax collector at the time quit the day before they appointed him. So it was an interesting merger, but it's been a successful merger ever since. It really wouldn't benefit anybody to have them be two different departments. It benefits the taxpayer, it benefits the public, and it benefits our employees. So my experience is I have 14 years residential appraisal experience in the tax office. I rose to the position of lead residential appraiser and sales data analyst, where I trended the value, which is now 12.9 billion real market value in Tillamook County. The past 7 years, I've been the chief deputy tax collector and assessor, where I have overseen the tax collection process. I also oversaw bankruptcies, foreclosures, ownership changes, assessment records, etc. So I believe with my experience coming in as the new assessor, I am ready and confident I can oversee both departments.
Wonderful. Thank you. Please, Bill.
I was just going to say, I haven't done one of these for 13 years because in September of 2011, Ms. Vanderkoover, our current assessor, was appointed to this position because of Tim Lutz's retirement. And so, you know, it gave me a little nostalgia to think about working with Denise for, you know, that period of time and for 11 years before that when she was working in the department.
Thank you.
Well,
Commissioners?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the explanation. That's always helpful to know how we have gotten to where we are because, yeah, the history gets lost as people who were part of that history are no longer here. We have Bill, who typically has a lot of history for us. But yeah, I appreciate that and I am in support.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Well, thank you. And again, I've come to know Cassandra a bit over the past year, and she's a competent, educated individual. And I think she'll do just fine. And this is, I guess you could say in many ways, the lifeblood of public agencies is you need money in order to do what you're charged with doing. And so you get it as fairly and evenly and follow statutes. And I think the county does that and does it rather well, recognizing you can't please everybody, and some people don't enjoy paying taxes, but it's the way the system works, and she's a good person to run it, and I have every confidence that she'll do just fine, and she'll get sworn in here in a week or two and off and running, so good.
Thank you.
Terrific. I am also fully supportive. I think we're fortunate to have you in this position, and we have full confidence in you. The voters have full confidence in you, so I'm happy and pleased to appoint you to the position of tax collector. And also just want to take a moment to thank Denise Vanderkoovering for her long-standing excellent service. Here she is online, and wish her a fabulous retirement. Well deserved. Denise, would you like to say anything?
Well, yes, thank you, commissioners. I'm just so proud of Cassandra. She's going to do a great job. Those were kind words, Bill. I totally get it. It's been a long time, but change is hard, but change is good. And Cassandra's going to do a great job. Our county is in good hands.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for the motion. Okay.
Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-078 in the matter of appointing a person to the position of county tax collector, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited to start serving with you as well.
Item 24 is consideration of an order in the matter of the appointment of the chair and vice chair to the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners for 2025. Mr. Sargent.
Ever since I've been around, at the end of the calendar year, the board will rotate and select a new board chair for the next year. And by way of this order that's before you, Commissioner Scar will become the chair, and Commissioner-elect Paul Fournier will become the vice chair in calendar year 2025.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments?
I appreciate this. There is a rotation of chair that happens in Tillamook County, and it would not have been my year to be chair. That would have been a year later. And I appreciate Commissioner-elect Fournier's willingness to flip and flop with me because I will be moving into the role of president of the AOC Board of Directors in the year of 2025. And I didn't want to be the chair here while I was president of that Board of Directors. So thank you very much for your courtesy of allowing me to jump the line on this. And I look forward to serving as the chair in the coming year.
Commissioner?
Thank you. I agree too. I think this is going forward in exactly the right way. I've been on boards where you did not rotate the chair, and in one case, and I won't name it, but an individual served for, I'm going to say, 8, 9, 10 years as a chair, and I'm not sure that's good public policy. I think moving people around, changing responsibilities a little bit is probably the better way to go, just in my opinion. So this is a way forward, and it makes perfect sense to me, so I'm good.
Thank you. I also support this, and I appreciate that in Tillamook County we rotate. We're privy to how other counties work, and we know that in some other counties the chair is elected, and so that person stays in that position until the next election and maybe ongoing if they're reelected. And in other counties, the board themselves votes for the chair position, which can make it sort of a popularity contest. So I think I like the way we do it. I like our shared governance model. I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's nice to have it rotate. And it is just a little bit more extra work. So it's nice that we're able to share that load through the course of the years that we're in office together. Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-079 in the matter of the appointment of the chair and vice chair to the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners for 2025, I move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Item 25 is consideration of an order in the matter of designating liaison responsibilities for the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners, for 2025. Mr. Sargent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of like the last one, every year, the board designates certain individuals amongst you to be the primary contact for the I don't know, there must be 100 listed on the order of your departments and organizations that you deal with. And by way of this order, that's what's going to happen. Just quickly, as an example, Commissioner Scar will, serve as the liaison to CARE and to the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties, where she's the chair, and a department, one of her departments is the Treasurer's Office. Commissioner-elect Fournier will act as the liaison to the County Forest Trust Land Counties and to the Fishermen's Advisory Committee. And Paul, you got quite a slew of departments, one of which is the Public Works Department. Mary Faith, you do as well have several responsibilities, a couple of which are the local Public Safety Coordinating Council and a couple of departments, the Circuit Court and the Library, in addition to others. The order also takes care of some of the liaison responsibilities of the Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Haggerty. I don't know if I can say chief among them, but at least a couple of them are the Veteran Services Department and the Human Resources Department.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. I think this is a good system too. Over my past year here, it's been a pleasure to work a little more closely with these departments, and most of them are self-sufficient and well-governed, and they just keep going, but there needs to be some kind of a connection. And I also recognize there's been a significant reorganization with the creation of central services, and so these things change a bit, but I think it's evolving for the better. So I'm absolutely in support of keeping it going. And the county is still small enough that Anybody can call anybody else and talk about almost anything, I think, even though respecting the relationships that exist. But, we're not so big and so bureaucratic that we can't actually have a conversation about whatever's going on. And so I think we have a pretty good mix.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it makes it easier if someone reaches out and has a question about a particular department, if they're to have a commissioner who is really interacting with and in that department as somewhat of a liaison both to department and to the public. Otherwise, I find myself where I had somebody call for something about parks, and it just didn't make sense for me to have to go learn about parks in order to answer a constituent question, where Commissioner Bell has that depth of knowledge. So I think it's a helpful way for commissioners to sort of serve as that bridge in some ways between the department and the public and, the constituency. So I think it's a good system.
Thank you. Likewise, I do too. And for the public, I think people use it in the way that you're describing. They can get on our website and see which commissioner is liaison to what department or organization and reach out to us directly. And additionally, because we don't have a full county administrator who administrates all county departments, the commissioners act as de facto administrators to the departments to which we're liaison. So we have a deeper dive, a deeper knowledge of the workings of that department, build relationships with those directors, and hopefully keep the wheels turning in that way. So I think we're ready for a motion. Okay.
Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-080 in the matter of designating liaison responsibilities for the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners for 2025, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Item 26 is consideration of professional services agreement with DLR Group Architecture and Engineering, Inc. for the Courthouse Space Planning Assessment Project. Rachel Haggerty.
After determining that the purchase of the BLM property was not going to be feasible to meet the county's needs to address our courthouse spacing and security issues or cost effective, we're back to square one again with how we're going to address that. At this time, we have discussed using ARPA money to secure the services of DLR to complete a space assessment of the courthouse. To my knowledge, the last time that was done in the courthouse, for the courthouse, was when the jail was constructed, when the space up where our offices are was vacated from the jail spaces and converted to meeting rooms A and B at that time. So it's long overdue. There's been a lot of changes in the courthouse. There are spaces throughout, and there's certainly a better way that I think our spaces could be structured. It will certainly come with an expense, but maybe it is a cheaper expense than some of the other options that we've looked at. So before you today is consideration of this contract to begin working with DLR. They will come in and do interviews with all of our departments to talk about their needs, and we'll do our best to see if we can find a way out of here to, well, and actually that might be quite literally, to resolve the situation. After the interviews, they will explore three concepts. One is remaining in the footprint of the courthouse. Secondly, expanding the footprint of the courthouse similar to maybe what the annex concept was several years ago, or exploring an option to have an off-site building, like the BLM option. Maybe there's a smaller footprint that we could reside in that would serve our needs. And then we would select one of those, and they would provide a cost estimate for pursuing one of those. So it's only going to take a couple of months to complete, barring scheduling with our departments.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Thank you. Well, I'm in support of this as well for the reasons that were just listed. I'm also familiar with DLR. I think I worked with them or previous partners some years ago. They're very legitimate, been around a long time. They do, as many architectural firms do, a lot of space planning and looking forward. And you do need, in a building of this size and complexity with security issues and all the other things, communication issues, you need a set of third-party professional eyes to look at something and say, okay, here's a better way of doing it or a different way of doing it, or what you're doing is actually pretty good. But you need somebody to tell you that. And as we all know, space is a problem, and it's a growing problem, and it's also an expensive problem. So this is a pretty good start, and I'm hoping it yields something that will make sense financially and logistically.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, I would agree. I didn't realize nothing had been done since the jail, because that was the late 80s, 90s, the 90s. Yeah, there's been a lot of changes. Some departments have left, other departments have been shuffled through. And the square footage we have is currently the square footage we have. So I think it's really looking to say, are there better ways to fit everybody in here than what we have going on right now? And if not, what is the option? Because it's not an option for the county to not have offices for the departments that are providing service to the public. And it's not an option to not have adequate offices. And I would suggest at the moment we're facing that there are departments here who are doing what they do in a space that really is not adequate for what they do. So I think it's one of those necessary pieces of doing business.
Thank you. I agree. And it's an investment in the space that we're in, which I appreciate. We're committed to this building, at least for the time being, and how can we make it work more efficiently for our needs, I think is a worthwhile, valuable thing to ask. And because the BLM purchase, folks have asked me in the community, is the county purchasing the BLM building? We're not, because we looked at the possibility of it, but it didn't meet the needs. And in order to make it meet the needs, it exceeded our ability to pay for it. So we're not purchasing the BLM building. And because of that, we need to take a really close look at, are we using the space in this building as efficiently as we could be? And is there a way that we could be using it better? So I'm fully supportive of this, and I appreciate you moving this forward, Rachel. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with DLR Group Architecture and Engineering, Inc. for the courthouse space planning assessment project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 27 is consideration of modification number 4 to personal services agreement number 5052 with Federal Engineering, Inc. for the voted simulcast for the Tillamook County Public Safety Communication System Project. Rachel.
We have had a contract with Federal Engineering since 2019, beginning with, we did a competitive procurement. We hired them to carry out the assessment, analysis, exploration with the user group of the concept, design, and the development of an RFP, and then ultimately overseeing the design and construction of the new system. So that enables us to continue modifying the contract with Federal Engineering as we move through this very long process. Before you today is an addition of $10,000 to the contract to bridge the gap a little bit between where we are now and when we're able to sell the bond on the market, which is slated for sometime later this spring. As I said, they have already completed the RFP, so we just need to dust it off the shelf, re-engage the user group, and get it up to where it needs to be working with them. So it's ready for your consideration, and this is paid out of our funding.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. I would support this. It makes sense to keep them going. They have a lot of institutional knowledge and background in doing this, and on our account in particular, so this is kind of a natural extension to keep it moving.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Okay, as am I.
Madam Chair, in consideration of modification number 4 to personal services agreement number 5052 with Federal Engineering, Inc. for the voted simulcast for the Tillamook County Public Safety Communication System Project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Item 28 is consideration of a personal services agreement with Troop HR, Inc. for the compensation and pay equity study. Rachel.
Following a request for proposal process, we received 2 proposals ranked by a committee. Troop was selected to proceed with the compensation and pay equity study. The cost is $82,000 beginning this month and extending through October. I added a month cushion there just because sometimes things go a little further and didn't want to immediately think that we're going to need to do an addendum. So last week you signed the notice of intent to award. We are pushing the 7-day notice protest period, so you wouldn't be able to sign this until tomorrow, but you could approve it today barring any protests. We reviewed the scope last week, including market salary research and analysis, pay equity, using the data that we are in the process of completing with the job classification description updates. It is ready for your consideration, and I did include this information in the all-employee email that it went out last week. I also forwarded that email to Teamsters Union and the AFSCME Union, and upon the signature tomorrow by the board, if you approve it, I'll forward this agreement to the unions as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Thank you. Look, again, is my judgment, a logical move forward of what we've been doing for some time is looking at the compensation across comparative organizations and the markets in general. And are we able to stay with the market? And if not, then what do we do about it? In this case, I guess I would just add, some people say, well, government's always looking at what you pay people and all this, and you pay them too much to begin with. Well, the truth of the matter is, if you don't compensate people fairly and in line with other opportunities for them, you lose them. And not only do you lose them, you have a difficulty refilling that position for the same reason. So this is all part of managing a workforce of, in our case, almost 300 people with 2 unions, that you need to look at these things, and it's almost a continuous, when you get done with one, you're almost ready to start another one. But that's what it takes to keep people going and compensate them fairly. And if you don't, you end up with worse problems than paying for a study. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am in agreement.
As am I, and I think we need to do this for our employees. We need to do it for the upcoming union negotiations, and we don't have adequate staffing in HR to do it internally. So maybe that will rectify itself in the future when we have a full-time HR director. But currently, Rachel is serving as our interim HR director, and if we're going to get this done, we have to use a contractor. So I am supportive.
Perfect, agreed. Madam Chair, in consideration of a personal services agreement with Troop HR for the compensation and pay equity study, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item 29 is consideration of a professional services agreement with McKinstry Ascension LLC for the technical energy audit and project development plan. Rachel.
This is our next phase in working with McKinstry to ultimately get to a place where we can replace and upgrade a lot of our facilities countywide. As you're familiar with, McKinstry completed a countywide facilities conditions assessment earlier this year. It identified in a 2-year plan over $6 million in upgrades that they recommended we needed to do, most notably at the courthouse and at the jail and throughout the parks facilities. This next contract with McKinstry explores the recommendations that were in that facilities condition assessment, opportunities for energy rebates, and designs what some of those replacements would be. So ultimately, at the conclusion of this, we would end up with a bid package and guaranteed maximum prices in a design build contract, which is something we typically don't do, but it's a great option for something like this that McKinstry administers on our behalf, as well as an opportunity to work with McKinstry in the phase beyond that to help secure grant funding. So I have affirmed with all of the departments included in this proposal that they are supportive of using their funds to support the work. So the facilities include the courthouse and the justice facility. That's $116,789 in general fund departments. That is allocated in ARPA. 15,000 or so with the library, about 5,500 from the Pioneer Museum, and about $2,200 for Public Works. So the non-general fund departments are willing to support their cost share with this project. The health department projects, Marlene wasn't interested in participating at this time. They just don't have a lot of big projects that warrant being part of this bundle. They certainly can, and they are working on a different track to upgrade some of theirs. So that's why they're excluded. And similarly with the Parks Department, there just weren't energy projects that, there's certainly facilities projects, but this is really focused on the energy projects. So that is a mouthful. It is a little complicated, but there's a lot going on, and it's an important next step, and it's paid out of ARPA.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Well, thank you. Again, I'll say what I said about the wage and salary compensation studies is the county is responsible for tens of millions of dollars of facilities, including this courthouse, which goes back to 1932. 1932, almost 100 years old. And so it's incumbent upon the board and our staff to make sure that it's kept in workable and safe condition and preserved for future use. So contracting with McKinstry, which by the way is an old line company, they've been around for many years, very legitimate, to come in and say, okay, here's some things that need to be done, here's how they should be done, or how they're done elsewhere, and here's what they might cost. That's a really good start. And then you budget for that. And this is part of managing facilities as compared with being reactive. Obviously, if you get a leak in the roof, you got to do something about it right away. But it's much better to look at it long term and say, okay, we know this is going to need attention in the next 3 years, and then plan for it. So this I think is the way forward.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I agree. One of the things we did in earlier tranche with ARPA was the original assessment with McKinstry. It was something that we had known we needed to do for a long time, that coming up with funding to do this kind of planning is difficult to do. And so with ARPA, we have been, I think, very strategic in using those funds for one-time projects, but also in using them for projects like this that lay out a future for us. We now have, with their assistance, a plan for the future management, maintenance, and upgrade of our facilities, things that we have to do. So I'm pleased that we're able to continue that work with the ARPA money and do the energy pieces.
As am I. We are responsible for the facilities that the county owns, of course, and in a time of dwindling resources, there's just a lot of deferred maintenance, and so I'm grateful that we have this opportunity to move forward.
Agreed. Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with McKinstry Ascension LLC for the technical energy audit and project development plan, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Here we have unscheduled item 3, which is consideration of a contract with Avenue Insights and Analytics for the purchase of Avenue Court Management Software. And we have the Honorable Ryan Cannell with us online.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And first of all, just thank you for moving me to the end. I had trials this morning, and so thank you for taking me up last. I think I might be the only person to ever say that. So to just kind of give everyone a little bit of background on what we're doing here. In the last month, we have been starting to talk to different collection agencies. We are in the process of consideration of changing what agency we use for our collections and kind of doing fact finding on that. As part of that, we also started looking at what court software was available. And at this point, and one of the things you're going to note in my discussion here is that there are a lot of known knowns, there are known unknowns, and we still have a lot of unknown unknowns in this process. Coming before you today was a little bit of a rush job because we're coming up to the end of year. And so the proposal that I'm presenting today kind of has 3 distinct outcomes that I see. First is that we approve it and move forward today. Second is that we table this, understanding that then we'd have to look at different funding streams outside of ARPA going into next year, so I can answer a lot more questions, because this particular project we've been working on for about 2.5 weeks, which, as I'm sure you know, is kind of a record turnaround for anything in government. And the third third outcome is you guys say, hey, like, we're not ready to do this right now, so cool it, and then we will sit back and continue on with what we're doing right now. Right now, we use SHAVs to do our court management as well as our data storage. Court management goes through a program called Magic, and we're using ORMS for our data storage. It looks like, and these are fairly approximate numbers here, we are spending for these services between about $10,000 and $11,000 a year. What we are, when I talk about Magic, Magic is not precisely court management software. Magic is more of data retention. It is much more focused on recording data and doing basic things like sending convictions to DMV, sending suspensions to DMV, but it's more of a database system as opposed to a court management system. And Magic works fine, but it bottlenecks a lot of stuff for us. Specifically, it has very little automation. And so it does automatically, for example, when an eSite is filed, pull the information off of it and populate its data fields. It doesn't do any data entry other than that. So everything else there, we manually do. The court management software is designed to do a lot more automation. Magic is built off of an IBM data management system from 1980. It is, the best description is really DOS-based. It doesn't have things like click interface. It's all manual keyboard entries. So in the field, there are 3 major softwares that are used by justice courts and municipal courts. Circuit courts use Odyssey on kind of a statewide system, but the 3 main for justice courts and municipal courts are Magic, Tyler, and Full Court. Full Court is the Avenue Enterprise software. And we've reached out to Tyler. Tyler has not gotten back to us. And so we kind of figure that if we're not giving you money and we're trying to give you money and you don't get back to us, that's a bad sign. Avenue got back to us right away, and we met with them yesterday, and they sent us the proposal that I believe we forwarded over to you at about 3 o'clock. Structurally, here are the big differences. With Avenue, it does a lot of automation. It is specifically designed as court management software. And so, as example, if someone misses court, it can automatically generate a letter, email, and send it to them rather than having us do it. It enters in, when an event happens, it enters in all the relevant information. So if someone misses court, right now, when someone fails to appear, I go through and manually do convictions and enter the conviction into Magic. And if, say, we have 20 failure to appears, which is common, that takes about an hour and a half, give or take. With full court, it is about 3 clicks of a button. So it does a lot more of the automation in data entry. The other big difference is that it is significantly more expensive. Right now, we're spending about 10 to 11,000 annually for subscriptions. Switching over to full court with their initial proposal would cost about 22,000 annually. And there are some things we can do to get those costs down, but we would probably be looking at I'd say 18,000 annual cost. Also, the implementation process would be a one-time cost of about 64,000. And so the reason that I am a little bit hesitant on this and am kind of presenting this as I can answer questions, but I'm kind of leaving this decision up to the board itself, is that one of the unknowns here is exactly what our ROI will be on implementing it. It will absolutely make things much more efficient. It will allow us to communicate much better with people. It will allow us to ensure that we are on best practices across the board, which are all good things. Magic is fine. It's inexpensive, and it does the base level job of what we need it to do. If we were a court with multiple judges, then Magic would 100% not work for us, but we're not. So it's one of those things where it would significantly improve efficiency, and it would remove a lot of the bottlenecks that we run into. However, our current system is also okay. We make it work. We've been able to piecemeal different systems together, which allows us to function. It's not ideal, but it's also not terrible. And I can answer any questions. We have not. We've roped in IS in that we're looking at this stuff. We've not talked to them specifically about implementation with full court because we got their proposal at 3 o'clock yesterday.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. I know Commissioner-elect Fournier wants to come up and has some things to say about this. And while he's on his way up, Judge, I wanted to ask you do you have the perception that this new system would enable you to collect more outstanding debts and fines?
Would it allow us to collect more? Yes.
More than you are currently.
More than we are currently, yes. The question is exactly how much more. And as an example, right now, when someone is either on a payment plan or and stops paying, or if they fail to appear, we, for the most part, have almost no communication with them because we're talking about 1,500 to 2,000 cases a year, and we have to individually create those letters. We have a form letter, but you still have to input data into it. With a system like Full Court, as soon as they fail to appear, it automatically generates an email, automatically then sends that email, also auto-generates letters, prints them out, and all we have to do is put it in an envelope. So that level of automation would allow us to have a lot more communication. The like, hey, you missed a payment last month, contact us within 30 days or else you'll be sent to collection. Here are the fees. Right now, we just don't have the personnel to do that. That's one of the bottlenecks that we're running into. With this system, it would just do it automatically. How much that would change our collection and revenue is a known unknown. If it went up, because right now we're collecting in full on about 70% of the cases that come before us. So if it went up 2 or 3 percentage points, then our ROI wouldn't be great. If it went up 10 percentage points, then that would be a noticeable difference.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Fournier for his question.
Well, that was one of my questions, so thank you for asking that. Ryan, the other question I had is, I think this is the system that you and I were speaking about, and I thought you had a jurisdiction that was using it, and it seemed to be helping them in collections. Something went up dramatically when they started using. Is this the same system?
Yes, so this system has been used by the Justice Court in Hood River. They said that they saw a significant increase in collections to the point where they were able to fully pay off and or I guess I shouldn't say pay off, recuperate funds that were spent for implementation, as well as the increase in annual costs within 3 years. I don't know their collection practices beforehand, so I can't speak whether or not that we would see the exact same result. But they did report to us that they had a significant increase in collections, which makes sense, because when you're trying to collect money from people, especially if they've just forgotten to pay, we don't have the bandwidth right now to reach out to them. If we did, everyone who failed to make payments, we'd send them a letter saying, hey, you got to get these payments back on, get in touch with us. So I think it would increase collections. I just can't say how much.
Also, would the system be able to use for the millions of outstanding tickets? Would this help with the collection of those, or initiating new, fresh letters? Or are you just going to leave that up to the collection agency, or can this serve a purpose with that as well?
So and this goes into us looking at additional or changing our collection agency. And we've talked to 3 major collection agencies, and a couple of them seem viable. One thing that they're looking at is what is our correspondence with folks prior to sending a case to collections. Now, the best practices and what most collection agencies are looking for is that the court sends people a letter beforehand saying, we're about to send you to a collection agency. This will then there'll be a fee imposed of X amount, which then the court imposes, and that you'll start having interest on the judgment at a 9% per annum basis. Right now, our collection agency, we don't impose any fee increases. That is done specifically through the collection agency. And so in order to switch, most collection agencies would want us to have a letter basically giving notice to people that they're about to be sent to a collection agency. In regards to the collection agencies, one of the interesting things that we've found when we're looking at stuff is most collection agencies expect to collect for government debt roughly 30 to 35% of what is sent over to them. Our current collection agency is collecting at about 37%. So they're at the higher end of industry standard. I don't know if that's something the collection agency is doing itself, but they are towards the higher end of what we would expect. With new software, if we wanted to do mass mailings, if we wanted to do really anything that would allow us to communicate with people in collections, it would be as simple as clicking 3 buttons. Currently, we're unable to do that because we have to manually fill in everything. And I think we're at about 15,000 cases in collections right now. And so we just don't have the manpower to type out 15,000 letters.
Okay, my last question is, as far as Magic and support, does that, I mean, it's basically a DOS-based system. Do we have like an expiration date or a sunset date for this software? So we're just pushing the can down the road if we wait, I'm just trying to figure out if at one point it's just not gonna be worth using it.
Magic has been around forever. They're not sunsetting. They've recently, in the last couple of years, and they're the same company that does ORMS. In the last couple of years, they've had a change of management, where they were sold to some larger conglomerate of some kind. So as far as I know, they're going to be around. And like I said, their software is fine. It just bottlenecks us sometimes. We did yesterday also go through a process, a training with them on how to do a mail merge for automatic mailings. After reviewing their process, I don't think it's feasible. I think it would be a lot more time and energy than it would save.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam.
If that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, if I may add, I think this is a great conversation. I think it's really great that they're looking at this upgrade, and it sounds like there's some good options forward. It was on the agenda today in the event that they were able to come up with a proposal for your consideration, but we don't have that. And if I'm hearing the implementation costs maybe around 65,000, there's some other procurement things that we would have to go through. So today, I don't really think there's an action before you to approve a contract.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so commissioners, would you like to weigh in?
Thank you. No, I've learned a long time ago, don't argue with a judge. Thing, but no, sounds like it has the potential to be a significant improvement in efficiency collections. And we've all heard the stories of how much receivables are and how much are uncollectible, and the whole system has some downsides for sure. So if this has a possibility of improving it, well, I would say move it forward and at least run it on a trial period. And if something changes, then deal with that. But I think we're ripe for some kind of improvement. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner?
No, I think this sounds fabulous. I think unfortunately we're not ready to approve a contract today. But what I love about this, another thing that is exciting to me, right? So what word did I use? Ecstatic. I'm ecstatic. Because I think this is our future as we are asking our department heads to really look at, are you utilizing technology in the very best possible way for our operations to be efficient and effective and of the best service to the public? And Judge, I really appreciate you bringing this forward because you have identified a need to modernize, like seriously have a need to modernize in our software. And the difference that can make in your department from the way you've described it is monumental, right? I mean, it really is monumental. So what I'm hearing from Rachel is we can't move this forward today because we don't have the right documentation. We haven't been through procurement, things that are required by the county. But what I think he's done is it's put it on our radar as something that we absolutely need to do. And the question will be exactly when and how that works in the best possible way. So I mean, that's what I'm taking away from it is we need to do this, but we can't do it today and with this funding.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues. Thank you for doing the research, Judge. And I know it was a short, you've been working on this for 2.5 weeks, I believe you said. And so I encourage you to continue doing the research, find out what more there is to know. If you can illuminate any of the unknowns that you were talking about, and come back when you have more information or clarity, work with Rachel on it. I don't know if that would be in the next budgeting cycle or before then, but it does seem to me clearly that we need to upgrade the software in your department, and that there could be tremendous benefits to that.
And just so the commissioners know, the proposal that they sent out, and it sounds like it hasn't made it over to you guys. I'll make sure that we're forwarding a copy of it over today. It is valid for 90 days, and so we've got time to work within the proposal. I can rope in IS, start talking about our technical requirements, get a formalized contract from them as we go through and do some negotiations on precisely what suites we would be looking for, which ones we don't need. And like I said, it's good for 90 days. So we'll be able to get back soon.
Okay.
And one of the big parts of the implementation was $40,000 of the $64,000 was just for data transfer, because the courts have currently over 20 years of files that would all need to be migrated into the new system. So a big part of this is just taking data from one place and moving it into a new place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any more
Thank you.
questions or comments for the judge?
So just assuring that he's working with Rachel on whatever purchasing requirements exist so that we get to the right place in the right way. So we'll be able to move it forward.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We'll move on now to unscheduled item number 4, which is consideration of change order number 4 to contract number 6371, prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Tillamook County and the Saunders Company, Inc. for the Cape Kiwanda project, Cape Kiwanda parking lot and restroom. Rachel Haggerty.
Fingers crossed. I hope this is the last change order to come before you. This is the last reconciliation of the unit prices of quantities of materials that were used at the Cape Kiwanda parking lot. Native material, import material, aggregate base, nothing very exciting to talk about. So it's only a change order increase in the amount of $21,119. And this should effectively close out that project.
Terrific.
And I would like to add, just while I have the microphone, we had an exceptionally busy time in our office last week because of a lot of different things that were hitting us at once, most notably these ARPA contracts. And I just want to thank Isabel for her work on this. She was a rock star last week in plugging a lot of holes that needed to be filled in. I'm really pleased to see we had 13 contracts on this agenda, and we're sitting really well with our ARPA funding. So
thank you.
Thanks for the extra time.
Yeah, thank you. Here, here. Bravo, Isabel, thank you. Several nights I was leaving after 5 and you were still here, and I know you worked very long hours last week, and I'm grateful. Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Thank you. No, I have no, and not much to add, simply that this project, as we all know, is one of the better ones the county has done over recent years. I have yet to hear anything negative about it. It just was well done. And I think that goes back to Rachel's oversight. And also we had a quality contractor all along. And those two ingredients give you a much higher probability of coming in on time, on budget, and making people happy. And so I think it's a good thing. I drive by it every day, and it's just a well done project that helped an area that needed a little help.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Agreed.
Agreed, as am I. It is a beautiful project, and I will share in your hope that this is the last change order, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. So thank you for your leadership in that project. I think we're ready for motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 4 to contract number 6371, prevailing wage rate contract for construction, Tillamook County and Saunders Company, Inc. for the Cape Kiwanda project, Cape Kiwanda parking lot and restroom, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, we do have a executive session today, so I'll take board concerns now and we'll read the announcements and then move into executive session. Commissioner Olson?
No, I have nothing I'd like to bring before the board as of the moment. Probably a few things this afternoon, but thank you.
Well, for myself, I would like to say that because next Wednesday is Christmas Day, this is Commissioner Olson's last meeting with us, and I would like to publicly thank you for your excellent service to Tillamook County as a commissioner in the last year and for at least 20 years prior to that in various capacities, including being the chair of the Budget Committee. It has been a pleasure to work with you, and we've been very fortunate to have your leadership, and I'll miss you, and I'm happy for you and Patty that you're retiring, and so thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I will just, I guess, add a comment. First of all, I would thank the two of you for putting me here. But for your positive view and support, I wouldn't be here. And as you recall, I came very close to saying, well, there's lots of people who can do this. And I was talked into at least following through. And so I'm very glad. I think it's been a good thing. And I will tell you and people who might be watching, to work with two accomplished people who are smart, ethical, honest, and have integrity is a pleasure. And I can't say that about everybody I've worked with over the years, but with the two of you and Rachel and others, the staff that has significant impact on the county as a whole, there's some really, really good people, and working with people who know what they're doing and can be trusted. That's a luxury. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I was wanting to thank Doug as well and Patty, because she was there with you the whole way, always by your side at every event. But Doug, you took on a couple of things this year that you were uniquely positioned to take on, and you made a huge impact, not only for this year, but for the county now and far, far into the future. And really, the radio project is one of those that I can't think of another person who could have come into this chair with the expertise, the knowledge, and the commitment to bringing that to fruition. So I really want to thank you for that. That is, I mean, for the next 20 years, we will be implementing, utilizing that radio project, and that's your work. So thank you for that. I also want to thank you for pushing the budget conversations forward. I think, again, it was something that you were uniquely positioned to do. Your skills, your knowledge, your experience just have served the county well. And again, that is a huge impact from being here for 1 year. You know, you have taken the 12 months that you've been given and you have done an exceptional job of moving things forward. The RFP for the retirement is still to come, so we know we've got a little bit more of your time circling into this coming year. But again, you know, for 12 months, you didn't shy away from the big projects, you didn't shy away from the hard work, and you led us forward in a number of areas. So I really want to appreciate you for your leadership as well, and Patty for being there supporting you along the way, because I've seen so much of her this year. It's been great fun. We're going to miss her too.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Okay, I will read the announcements. The commissioners will hold a board briefing today, Wednesday, 28th, 2024 at 2 p.m. to discuss weekly commissioner updates. The meeting will be held here in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 at the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue in Tillamook, teleconference number 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. The Commissioners will hold an executive session on Friday, December 20th, 2024 at 1 p.m. pursuant to ORS 190.662 sub 2 sub 660 sub 2 sub I to hold a performance evaluation. The executive session will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook County, Oregon. The executive session is not open to the public. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are observed holidays for Tillamook County. All county offices in the courthouse will be closed on Tuesday, December 24th, 2024, and Wednesday, December 25th, 2024. In addition, the Tillamook County Library, administrative offices in the Jail and Justice Facility, Public Works Department, Community Development Department, Surveyor's Office, and the Health and Human Services Department and clinics will be closed. The State Circuit Court located in the county courthouse will be closed on Wednesday, December 25th, 2024. In addition, because we're closed, it's a holiday on the 24th, we will not be having the Community Updates radio call on Tuesday, December 24th, 2024. So at this time, 11:29, we will recess the board meeting and go into executive session under ORS
926602H to consult with counsel concerning pending litigation or litigation likely to be filed.
Thank you. Okay, so this meeting is recessed at 11:29.
All right, need a minute? Yes, please.
Do we need to, we don't need to come back and vote on anything, do we, Bill?
No,
Okay.
we're just gonna go, have to do with this
Information.
settlement and
Okay.
the settlement agreement.
Okay.
Just felt like you guys needed to
An update.